railways have driven the modern world since the 19th century, delivering goods and people all across America. Things would not be the same today without them. But over time, industry changes. Railways are abandoned and forgotten. Today we're talking about one such railway, abandoned but not forgotten. This is the story of the Albuquerque rail yards.
But to you, $100. No one but you, baby. No one but you.
Albuquerque was founded in 1706 by Spanish explorers, and over the next 100 years its population would swell. By the mid-19th century, industry would begin flooding the city. In the 1880s, Albuquerque was designated as a division point for the Pacific and Atlantic Railroad. The Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe railways would be the primary railway companies that would construct the rail yards. They would repair steam locomotives from all over the Southwest, as well as being part of a major system of railways that would ship goods all across America. Albuquerque would become a very important stop on the Transcontinental Railway. The majority of the buildings in the railway would be constructed across a 10-year period between 1914 and 1924. Many of the buildings that were constructed for the rail yards are still around today, including the flue that was built in 1920, the blacksmith shop that was built in 1917, the machine shops that were built in 1921, an assembly hall that was built in 1922, a boiler that was constructed in 1923, and a firehouse that was constructed in 1920. The rail yards were at the forefront of industrial technology for decades. In 1922, it was compared to the Ford Motor Company glass plant, which, according to Grant Hildebrand, was considered to be the single factory which carried industrial architecture forward more than any other. The architecture of the rail yards was designed for industrial efficiency. For example, all the rail lines would move from north to south, while a tow cable would move all the locomotives between buildings east to west. The cranes were also designed to move east to west, freeing up traffic and increasing efficiency. Locomotives of the late 19th century and early 20th century would typically travel around 400,000 miles a year, meaning that every year they had to be completely overhauled. It was times like this that the Albuquerque rail yards would be the busiest, although even on an average day of work there was still plenty for the workers to do. Workers in the rail yards would tear down and repair on average about 40 locomotives a month. Although there would be a sharp decline in industry during the Great Depression, the Albuquerque rail yards would reach its record high employment during World War II. Over 1,500 workers would be hired in order to help repair the locomotives that were moving munitions and personnel all across the country. After World War II, railway companies across the country would switch from steam to diesel engines. By the 1950s, the rail yards would be used for construction of new diesel engines. Over time, the rail yards would be used less and less, and by the 1990s, it would practically be just a storage facility. Over the next decade, vandals and looters would begin to flood the historic structures. It wouldn't be long before broken windows, bullet holes, and graffiti would take over the decaying structures. In 2007, the city of Albuquerque would purchase the site. Other than the filming of Terminator 4, the site didn't see any use. It continued to decay with practically no hope of restoration, that is, until 2014.
The market started in 2014, so I started off as a volunteer then.
So you've been here since the very beginning?
Yes, yeah, a lot of neighborhood residents and community members kind of all came together in a big grassroots effort to activate the space with the city, of course. So the previous mayor, Mayor Barry, revitalized the blacksmith shop. So that's where the market's normally housed in the summer. And then for the holiday market, we've got all the 250 vendors around as well. And the current mayor, Mayor Keller, has been putting in a lot of effort and elbow grease to get the site activated for community use. Most of the site has been closed up until this point, so we now have that beautiful new activated plaza over there, which I don't know if you saw, but there's actually original tracks going through the plaza, and there's sort of a facade that looks like a round table. It's really cool.
What can you tell me about the history of the rail yards?
Well, the blacksmith shop was built, this shop that we're in front of was built in 1917, and the entire site has been closed since diesel started to take over. So the entire site was closed by the 70s and was kind of vacant for a long time until Mayor Barry revitalized the blacksmith shop. The Wheels Museum has also put in a lot of efforts to revitalize the site and work with the site. And then in 2014, the community wanted their rail yards back, so more than 25% of the workforce in Albuquerque used to work here in the rail yard's heyday. So a lot of Burqueños have a big connection to the rail yards and really love being here. We get a lot of neighborhood residents, old timers coming in and telling us stories about how their grandpa used to work here. It's really neat.
What has the rail yards done for the community?
Well, the rail yards is it's an architectural treasure for all of New Mexico. It was one of the last rail yard sites to be revitalized in the entire U.S. So Burqueños really love the rail yards, the historic neighborhoods. Pareles, South Broadway and San Jose are all very invested in the rail yards and seeing it be reactivated and keeping it rooted in the community. I think has been really important to any administration or any group working with it. Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about the rail yards?
Just that we're really proud to be working here and be in such a historic and beautiful site. We like to call these our industrial cathedrals. We come here every Sunday to be with the community and build community. If anybody has eyes on and we just love being here every Sunday. It's like our church all together,
We were fortunate enough to visit the rail yard markets during its busiest time of the year. Although it acts as a farmer's market during the months of summer, the holiday market is its biggest event. We had the opportunity to speak to some of the vendors who attend the market.
We serve pretzels, soft and hard pretzels with different flavors. Plain blue corn pretzels, green chili, cheddar rye, and cinnamon sugar.
How long have you been vending here at the rail yards?
This is our first year.
Yeah, what do you think of it so far?
It's been great. I think it's a very good market. A lot of
Business based here in Albuquerque?
we don't have a storefront. Yeah, it's a local business. We don't have a storefront. We operate at the market.
I make decorative and functional stoneware.
Pretty cool. How long have you been a vendor at the rail yards?
Since the very first year.
How long ago was that?
I think this is the 6th year of the rail yards, if I'm not mistaken.
So you like coming here?
I love this place. I love the staff too.
So would you say that the rail yards has done a good job supporting local businesses?
I do believe so. Yes.
And what do you think about the history of the rail yards?
The original history of the rail yards?
Yeah.
Well, it's been a long time. It's been closed for like 30 years or 35 years, since like 70 something. I'm glad that the developer from California doesn't have the option to buy all the buildings for any money. That the city's back in charge of it. That's really important. Because there's a lot that could be done with this site. As many buildings as there are, and as many acreage as there are.
Do you think this is a good use of the space?
I do. The initial use of the space, I think we should have 2 or 3 story hydroponic greenhouses in these places, an outdoor garden and a homeless shelter and a kids art program in one of the buildings as well. I think there's tons of different possibilities.
Yeah, most definitely. Is there anything else you'd like to say about the rail yards?
No, I'm just happy to be part of it, quite frankly, and I'm, over and over again. We see a lot of the same people year after year. So it's really well supported by the community as well, and the Bud Atlas community and Albuquerque at large. And you can tell by the lines that are coming in. Like yesterday, there was a line forever, and we even had lines of people waiting to buy stuff, so which is good. No, I think the rail yards market is a really great idea.
Much of the history of the rail yards would be put on display in the Wheels Museum, which would be housed in the storehouse. These massive historic structures are undergoing a master development plan by the city of Albuquerque. This master development plan, adopted in June of 2014, will see the renovation of the historic structures rather than their demolition. The same of which can't be said for many of the abandoned buildings covered on this channel. There is also plans to rebuild parts of the rail yards that had previously been demolished. According to the city, quote, important iconic elements of the rail yards that had previously been demolished should be rebuilt in order to re-establish the original organization of the site.
This is actually our first time being here at the rail yards. We've heard a lot about it, but we have our other markets that we go to. But we had an invitation to come out here for this event, so came out here, and it's really a big market right now.
What do you think of the rail yards so far?
It's extraordinary. There's a lot of people coming out here, a lot of good energy, a lot of variety. As far as vendors go, yeah, a lot of excitement out here.
So would you say that the rail yards market supports local businesses?
Definitely. I mean, this provides an outlet for local vendors, local farmers, people that create local products in general to come out here, connect with the people, make a living. And get their name out there.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about the rail yards?
Well, this is a historic place, and for it to be shut down for so long and then revived now to become a center for people to gather, meet, people in their neighborhoods, people that create things in their neighborhoods. I think it's a wonderful opportunity.
The Santa Fe rail yards and the rail yards market are a huge staple of Albuquerque's cultural history. These buildings would have been left to decay if it weren't for Albuquerque's community, who've come together in order to save them. And now the story of the Albuquerque rail yards and its surrounding community will never be forgotten.
I've got this feeling in my brain that if we all together just concentrate hard enough, eventually we're gonna make it rain. look up at the sky, and I'm searching for the tiniest of clouds. I spot a wispy spot among the glare, and I look down at you, and you're nodding at me now, and we both start to pray the water from the sky. We're begging condensation to rain down from up on high, and we've got nothing left to lose and nothing left to gain, and the people are all staring 'cause they know we're gonna make it rain.
Driven modern innovation. Oh, frick. I forgot the line. I tend to do that a lot.
I get the signs.